Get ready to rumble! SpaceX Starship performs static fire frenzy of both Ship 28 and Booster 10 at Starbase. We do the detailed analysis. Are they ready for flight? When will it happen? NASA tests Lunar Starship Elevator together with veteran astronauts. What's the verdict? Falcon Heavy Launches X37B further into space than ever before, and ULA is getting ready for its next-gen rocket. SpaceX. When I do my research for episodes, it sometimes seems like they've taken over the whole industry. Is that really so? How close are they to that next Starship launch, and what can we expect besides guaranteed excitement? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. 10 days of vacation in Germany with our family and friends. 10 days of reminders of why we moved to the US and what we're missing. But also 10 days of racing action at Starbase. 10 days of testing on SpaceX's Starship that other launch providers would likely need months for. 10 days to reassure the Y team that our work in 2024 will be very much needed to keep you updated. December 20th started a frenzy of testing at Starbase. Something many hardcore Starship fans are used to, but also something others repeatedly find hard to believe. Ship 28 on Testpad B, the only testpad remaining at Starbase after the recent and complete removal of Testpad A. The beginning of a restructuring and a new plan moving forward. Reported by Kathy Leaders, leader of operations at Starbase and former head of human spaceflight at NASA, it outlines the move away from the launch site for any and all engine testing in the future. All the static fires we are so used to from this site are supposed to be moved to Massey's in the future, and we reported about it in detail. There is more change there, more on that later. So how'd Ship 28 fare? Any problems? Is it ready for a flight? We're pleased to announce that it very much looks like it is, yes. The static fire performed on December 20th can only be described as a textbook operation. All 6 Raptor engines, so 3 center sea-level engines with small bells and 3 outer vacuum-optimized engines with large nozzles, all performed excellently for a total of 5 seconds. Full duration, nominal burn. Spectacular to see and the most impressive rocket tests this planet currently has to offer. Take a good look, Vulcans. Are we ready for a first contact? SpaceX's media department delivered as well. Here's the slow motion. Here you can easily see the 2 different ignition cycles for the 2 groups of engines. Watch the long flames change their patterns. That's it. Good test. A wonderful job by the Starbase crew and a testament to how good they've become. This is routine. Static firing, the largest upper stage ever built, routine, well done, but that wasn't nearly all. I called it a testing frenzy for a reason. Look at this. Booster 10, the latest and greatest. Countless changes to the rocket. Very likely some of them are based on the results of flight number 2. The mysterious demise of Booster 9 right after hot staging almost definitely caused changes to this new booster. Software and hardware alike must have gone through tweaks. Less sudden engine ignition after separation, more protection for the forward dome of the booster, which has to go through tremendous stress during hot staging. All is on the plate, none is confirmed. Lifted onto the orbital launch mount, the heart of all SpaceX Starbase launches on December 19th, we did not have to wait for long to get a phenomenal result delivery from SpaceX. These images, made by our photographer John Cargile, show the booster just after it got lifted onto the launch mount. Freshly painted legs, lots of upgrades and repairs. All performed between November 18th and December 20th. 1 month of refurbishment time. This is not rapid reuse yet, but it is already leaps and bounds ahead of NASA's SLS, for example. Here, a refurbishment of the launch pad can take up to a year. Fast forward to December 29th just to keep the flow. Other things happened, but I'll update you about those after the testing frenzy report. The big day for Booster 10. Is it going to perform? Is it worth putting on the OLM not just for a static fire but for an actual flight? That next big test to get a Starship into orbit. Watch this and be the judge. I love my job. In fact, the entire Y team loves what we do, and these are the moments why we love it. Our camera, positioned a little more than a mile away from SpaceX's Starship launch mount, captured the whole deal. 33 Raptor engines, 4,125 tons of thrust at 50% throttle. At half power, that's usually the level at which SpaceX does these tests to not stress the systems more than needed. That's what that looks like from a not-so-safe distance. The site is being evacuated every time something remotely dangerous could happen. Static firing a stainless steel monster certainly falls into this category. Not a living soul is around when this stuff happens. First, pressure shoots out of the valves connected to the feeder pipes for the water deluge system. Pressure pushes the water through the pipes leading to the underside of the water deluge plate. Water shoots out of thousands of holes inside the plate, ready to fight the combined force of 33 Raptor engines. Ignition occurs. The inner 13 fire first. Then the outer 20 and the blast begins. 11 seconds of torture for the deluge plate and 11 seconds of valuable data for the SpaceX team. These tests are done to check everything connected to feeding the engines and keeping them running. Pipes, valves, sensors. The heart of the booster is beating, and the aftermath? We had our very own John Cargile up in the air right after the test. Red Line Heli. I can't say it often enough, the view is spectacular. Go check them out if you want to do your own flight, the link is in the description. And the verdict? A+. No visible damage to the launch mount itself besides the obviously blasted legs. The plate itself proves over and over again that this was a very good choice. Remembering back to before the plate was tested first, I saw myself more than once trying to explain why I thought that this system would work. It's physics. If the force countering the blast is equally strong, then yes, a relatively thin steel plate can withstand the force. The immense heat and force are not able to reach the plate much in the first place. The energy is converted into steam, which is a very efficient way of dealing with pressure or sound as we perceive it and heat. But wait, that's not all. There's more, you say? Yes, there is. Testing frenzy. Remember, no clickbait here. December 29th held more than just the full static fire of the Flight 3 booster. Ship 28 came to life once more. What you're looking at here is the ignition of a single Raptor engine on the Flight 3 Starship, demonstrating a flight-like startup for an in-space burn. Now, what's that supposed to mean? Why just one engine? Wouldn't that mean asymmetric thrust? Yep, you're right. Starships will likely never just fire one engine in space. It would make the ship tumble, and the reaction control thrusters would likely not be able to compensate for a mean Raptor blast. That's not what this test was about. SpaceX deep-frosted the engine before the test by running fuel through the inner workings for a prolonged time. Then, by giving it a sudden ignition, they test if the engine is capable of reliably firing up under these conditions after having been used before during the static fire. This test gives them valuable data that's almost as good as firing it in space, because that's something they were not able to test yet under real conditions. Starships haven't reached orbit yet, but they are working on it, and this showed in everything they did during the holiday break. Besides all the testing we just analyzed together, SpaceX received two very large items. One is the new tower segment we discussed in the episode just before the holiday break. It has arrived via barge directly from Kennedy Space Center to the port of Brownsville. Manufactured in Florida, it is part of the new launch and integration tower to be built at Starbase. SpaceX showed it many times before in animations depicting the future of Starbase. And this is it. Expect construction work for the second tower at Starbase to proceed soon. The tower segment came together with two large white tanks, and the parts are still at the port of Brownsville as you're watching this. The tower segment will very likely be moved to the Sanchez site next to SpaceX's build site complex. And they are likely methane tanks, supposed to be installed at Massey's test site in preparation for engine tests in the future. Where you want ignition tests, there needs to be fuel. It's part of the transformation process the site will go through in 2024. All those engine tests at the launch site basically almost gone. All of it will move to Massey's for several reasons. Road closures at the launch site will be kept to an absolute minimum due to the fact that Massey's is not at the beach. Secondly, this opens the way for a faster launch cadence. If SpaceX can test and launch at two separate sites, space is freed up for the second tower and ground tests don't collide with launches. SpaceX is on a roll at Starbase. 4 to 5 Starship launches are predicted for 2024. What is your prediction? How many launches will we see? And could it just be possible that we see a first catch of a booster this year? Leave your predictions in the comments. Now here is a little task for you before we get to see more details on the Starship HLS. YouTube may have unsubscribed you without your knowledge. This has happened to thousands of Y viewers and they seem to do this frequently. Please double check that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss our updates. While checking, hit the like button and consider becoming a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, now including orbital, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress and countless other extras on top. No matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Check our new website as well, launch previews, road closures, the latest weather report, and our multi-stream viewer, whataboutit.space. The link to our Patreon page and the new website is in the description. Thanks to all the supporters who help fulfill dreams for our team. We can't thank you enough. You rock. In this episode filled with Starship developments, let's add a few more SpaceX-related pieces of news. NASA finally revealed the first high-resolution image of a Starship human landing system elevator prototype, and what's the verdict? In this incredible photo, we can see NASA astronauts Nicole Mann and Doug Wheelock donning their training lunar EVA suits and operating a subscale mock-up elevator that is located at SpaceX's Hawthorne facility. The test in this photo allowed the astronauts to interact with a flight-like design of the elevator system, serving as both a functional demonstration of the hardware and providing the chance to receive valuable feedback from a crew perspective. The feedback included thoughts on the on-elevator controls, such as gate latches, ramp deployment interfaces for moving into and out of the elevator basket, available space for cargo, and dynamic operations while the basket moved along a vertical rail system.
My name is Doug Wheelock. Everybody calls me Astro Wheels or Papa Wheels. And I understand this message is going to the president of Mars.
Together with my wife Stefanie, I had the chance to talk to Doug Wheelock, aka Wheels, during the Artemis 1 launch. He still is and has been part of the NASA team helping SpaceX develop everything needed for the Lunar Starship, including control interface and cockpit layout. The eventual elevator on the Starship HLS should be roughly 30 meters or 98 feet tall and is designed to carry both astronauts and their equipment, moon buggies included. At 98 feet above the lunar surface, that'll be a breathtaking sight for the astronauts who can step out and look around. Can you imagine that? The observation opportunities will be incredible. This kind of idea I'm talking about was first done on Apollo 15 when they opened up the top hatch of the lunar lander to do a stand-up EVA to get a better understanding of the lunar topography they were about to explore. This could allow the teams at NASA to help plan the eventual EVAs of their astronauts. An exciting development indeed. As we track everything happening at Starbase, the Cape, and elsewhere, it is important to remember all of these other little details that are being brought together for our first trip back to the lunar surface since 1972. So now that I've brought that little detail up, did you know that the US is going back to the moon even sooner than HLS? With an uncrewed lander from Astrobotic called Peregrine, which will be launching on the debut launch of United Launch Alliance's Vulcan Centaur rocket, possibly as early as January 8th at 2:18 a.m. The secondary payload on this mission is Celestis Memorial Spaceflight's Deep Space Voyager mission, known as the Enterprise flight, which is carrying the ashes of several Star Trek actors, among others, beyond the moon. Talk about boldly going where no one has gone before. This flight, known by ULA as CERT-1, will be flying from Slick 41 in the rocket's VC-2S configuration, the two representing the two GEM-63XL solid rocket boosters attached to the side of the center core, and the S represents a short payload fairing length. The short version of the fairings is a sweet 51 feet or 15.5 meters in height and 17.7 feet or 5.4 meters in diameter. The core stage of the 202-foot-tall rocket uses two BE-4 Methalox engines from Blue Origin, and its second stage will use two RL-10 Hydrolox engines from Rocketdyne on the Centaur 5. The plan for Vulcan Centaur is to take over the workload of ULA's Atlas and Delta rockets, which will hopefully help ULA drive their launch costs down with having one production line instead of two, and will eventually incorporate partial reusability with their Smart Reuse program, fingers crossed. After the liftoff of CERT-1, it'll put the Peregrine lander into a highly elliptical orbit around Earth. At an altitude of 304 miles or 490 kilometers over the Earth, the lander will then detach 50 minutes and 26 seconds into flight and begin a small series of burns. On every orbit, it will slowly raise its apogee until the moon's sphere of influence captures it. It'll eventually land on the surface of the moon in the Sinus Viscositatis region on February 23rd. The Peregrine lander is carrying 5 NASA payloads for its CLPS program, as well as several other private payloads. One of them is the I Need More Moon mission, which our team member TJ Cooney ran several years ago, sending 12,000 names, including the Y family, to the moon for free. That is crazy! TJ is sending a payload to the moon. Following the separation of the Peregrine lander, the Centaur 5 upper stage will do one more burn to continue on into a hyperbolic orbit around the Sun with the Enterprise flight payload. We'll make very sure to upgrade you on the exciting progress of this mission in future episodes. Now let's talk Heavy. Falcon Heavy launched the secret X37B spaceplane further into space than ever before on December 28th after weeks of delays attributed to poor weather and unspecified technical issues. Yes! This was another stunning flight for reusability fans. This flight used 2 flight-proven side boosters, 2 flight-proven fairings, and the X37B, which was making its 4th trip to space. On the X37B's most recent flight, it spent 908 days or 2.5 years in space, so don't expect it back too soon. The Pentagon has disclosed very few details about this X-37B mission conducted under the military's National Security Space Launch Program. What we do know is that its goals are to use the spaceplane in new orbital regimes, experimenting with classified payloads to test domain awareness technologies, and execute NASA's SEEDS-2 experiment, which will explore the long-term effects of radiation on plant seed. The X-37B, built by Boeing, is roughly the size of a small school bus and resembles a miniature space shuttle. It is built to deploy various payloads and conduct technology experiments on years-long orbital flights. At the end of its mission, the spacecraft descends back through the atmosphere to land on a runway, much like the now retired Space Shuttle or the soon-to-fly Dream Chaser. This flight took many by surprise, as it was the first time that the X-37B would be flying on Falcon Heavy, with its previous 6 flights all coming from Atlas V or the Falcon 9. Flying on Falcon Heavy, it will now have more Delta-V to go to orbits it could not reach before. The launch seemingly went perfectly to plan. Falcon Heavy launched in a northeasterly trajectory, with both side boosters returning to the launch site for touchdowns on landing zone 1 and 2. The core stage separated and fairing separation was confirmed as well, textbook operation. The center core was as always expended, and we do not know the final inclination or orbit of the X-37B since it's highly classified, but it's safe to assume they used that extra boost from Falcon Heavy to send it deeper into space than it could before. Where do you think it went? Do you think it made a dogleg maneuver to throw us off its scent? Let us know in the comments. Our final story of today will be in memoriam of a legendary Falcon 9 booster that we'll never forget, B-1058. Its most notable launch is its first one, returning America to crew flight capabilities for the DM-2 flight in 2020, sending Bob and Doug to the International Space Station. Its most notable visual characteristic is the obviously superior NASA worm logo on the side of the booster, along with the NASA meatball logo. What is your favorite logo? This is the only booster in the SpaceX fleet where its livery was dedicated to NASA, or really the only booster in the fleet that had any branding other than SpaceX. The Falcon fleet's life-leading booster flew a total of 19 times. That is right, with 14 of them being Starlink launches, it carried more than 860 satellites, totaling 260 plus metric tons in about 3.5 years. Wow! 2 days after its 19th successful landing, this time on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, high winds and rough seas forced the booster to topple over, with the top half of the booster being severed off and falling into the Atlantic. Santa sadly was not coming to this drone ship for Christmas. According to Kiko Donchev, SpaceX's vice president of launch, this booster lacked a newly designed self-leveling leg system that was designed to prevent such an issue, where winds force a booster to tilt off to one side and prevent the octagrabber from making a perfect bite on the base of the booster. He stated on X, the fleet is mostly outfitted, but B-1058, given its age, was not. It met its fate when it hit the intense wind and waves, resulting in the failure of a partially secured octagrabber less than 100 miles from home. He later stated they will learn as much as possible from the historic B-1058 incident to bring spaceflight to aircraft-like operations in the future. Good news also comes from John Edwards, SpaceX's vice president of Falcon launch vehicles. On X, he stated, "We are planning to salvage the engines and do live leader inspections on the remaining hardware. There is still quite a bit of value in this booster, we will not let it go to waste." This is the way of spaceflight. Learn from your mistakes, make adjustments, and improve the reliability of your vehicles. This booster brought us many great memories, and its history will live on in future boosters. Thank you, B-1058. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. We have a 24% off sale on everything going until January 7th. Sweet deal, link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. We'll go through a thing. February. And Rander, hey. Category.